Anyways, guys, yes. So let's get into some climate change news. First of all, I wanted to read some good comments from the comment section. And let me see. Where are we? Oh, first of all, if you've been wondering why this keeps showing up on my, I keep hitting the wrong button and this little graph keeps showing up on my live stream. And then I keep forgetting to actually cover it. So I don't know. It shows you how kind of unfocused I am around actually keeping things tight. But anyways, it's a good graph. This is the last 2,020 years as far as global heating. So when, the people that are always talking about, the weather is always changing or the climate is always changing, and what about the little ice age and the medieval warm period, and they try to go back in time, right, to show that everything is just normal, when no. No. But this is the last 2,020 years as far as global temperatures go, showing here the medieval warm period. It was warmer a couple thousand years ago. It was a little bit warmer, but still basically below our baseline, which here is about 1880, I guess. I guess this is using an 1880 baseline. Or is it a 1900 baseline? I don't know, around that time. So, the global temperature for the last couple thousand years has been pretty below the baseline. The medieval warm period here was even below our baseline of 1880. Max above 0.39 C, but I don't even know. I can't even really see where that is. The little ice age, well below. Max minus 0.11 C. Oh, and then you get to here. You get to 1900. Boo! Here we are. And again, I don't know what the hell these baselines. Yes, they're using 1880, but look where we are. We're at 0.75. Yeah, or 0.71 is what they're saying. We are not at 0.71. Lest anybody think that I'm telling you that we're at 0.71 C. We are not at 0.71 C. We are well above 0.71 C. The last September 2019 through September 2020, which we just saw yesterday, is 1.3 C above baseline. So this is also misleading, this graph. Anyways, let's move on. There's a good comment from Cougar W. There's a bit of an exchange around solar, the use of solar, because of our discussion yesterday about Planet of the Humans. Cougar W says, you didn't read my comment. He was talking to Rick Small. I don't need YouTube for anything. I already operate $80,000 worth of industrial grade kit, that's solar kit. 16 kilowatts of inverters and charge controllers, 720 watt hours of lithium battery storage, and 30 high performance 350 watt monocrystalline panels. So that's quite a setup, Cougar W. I didn't know you had that dramatic of a solar setup. But anyways, I move enough electricity on a good day to power several houses while the sun shines. But few who might be reading this can likely afford the same. And regardless, the solar industry cannot produce all that kit for everyone without completely destroying the planet in the process of mining and manufacturing. This is really good information to understand from somebody who is involved in using solar power at the moment. That being the exact point of the movie, Planet of the Humans. And yet, with all that investment, that is the minimum. What it takes to survive off-grid in a modest home without compromises. And I need a few more panels and batteries, even at that, to be really self-sufficient during bad weather. For example, the recent weeks-long smoke cover from California fires was a serious problem for our solar production, so that I had to switch back to grid power for a few days. Clouds and fog are a problem as well. Solar is really, really hard and really expensive. I did it because I had the cash at the time and I wanted more control over my electric power. And I'm an electrical and mechanical engineer and a home builder, so I can think clearly in these terms. But almost nobody else can just sit down one day and decide to do all that. And doing this on a global scale is simply impossible. I mean, no way in hell. Nor are there enough engineers sitting around with nothing else to do but get all this up and running at scale and quickly enough to even attempt to save civilization. Seriously, this is insanity. I've got mine already, but unless you have yours too, then I wonder if you ever will.
On, time and space.
Sorry, I don't know why that's happening. Anyways, great comment from Cougar W. Great comment from Cougar W. And that's real. That's that's the reality around solar and renewables, that there is a lot involved in the production and manufacturing. There's a lot involved in the installation. And he's talking about right now at the current moment. He's talking about the technology we have right now. Not 10-year-old, it's 10-year-old technology. The technology we have right now. The latest advanced technology, solar power solar panels. He has it. He has it, and it's still problematic, right? And it still probably would require people to downsize their footprint, their energy usage, right? And I would actually, even if you had solar panels, I would probably suggest that people downsize their energy usage as much as possible. Yeah, and that's a lot of money. Judy Truitt, my one friend who was on solar has switched to regular power. Too complicated and time consuming, and batteries only lasted for a year and weighed a ton. Good point, Judy Truitt. On the fence with Muzza blue titanium panels. I don't know anything about those. Are those a magic bullet? Or is that the new technology? I don't know. I have to look into it. I don't know anything about it. Hatsutaki solar and wind both are intermittent. Battery storage also an issue. I'm going to go back to another comment. Basil Peterson, I've been off grid for 20 years. Good for you. I mean, I'm not saying that it can't be done, and I'm sure it can be done. And also, Basil Peterson, I'm assuming that you have a very low energy footprint, right? I'm kind of assuming that the way you live is extremely simplified, right? Like you're not running a whole bunch of appliances, and right? You're not maxing out your wattage every day, right? Let me see. Basil has an awesome system. Andy the Gardener, get rid of cars and we can talk about solar and wind. Juliet Nickel says 27 solar panels here, going 5 years strong without maintenance. All right, that's good. Are you running everything on your solar panels? 27 solar panels. That's a lot of solar panels. Where are they? Where are your 27 solar panels, by the way, Juliet Nickel? Basil Peterson, I read a lot of books. There you go. There you go. You read a lot of books. Brent McKinney says SunPower now has 400-watt panels. Oh, I've lost it. I lost it. I think they are the most efficient now. Hatsutaki, how much roof space do you need to have 27 panels? 27 panels on the roof of your house. That's a lot of panels. But I mean, that's great. I'm glad you're doing it. I'm not saying that solar panels are wrong or that you shouldn't have them or shouldn't use them. It's way better than, belching emissions into the air. I'm certainly for that. I'm just, again, wondering if we're all going to be able to do that. 27 solar panels by how many millions of households in the country? What's the energy that it takes to make those, ship those, mine those? Doomhound says all sun power is highly efficient and 99% recyclable. Okay, that's good. That's good. J Thadcast, solar only works for the wealthy. Kuro Hikes, we just need 20 solar panels for 8 billion people, no problem. Right. Okay, one other comment I wanted to read is, hold on. Really good comment from Forest Dweller Research. Human society is not a heat engine. Industrial human society is a heat engine. Agrarian human society is a mildly warm engine. Human hunter-gatherer society produces no warming at all. Has not done so for millions of years. Your point is therefore incorrect. Climate science does not use a pre-human society baseline for good reason. It uses a pre-industrial baseline. Good point. Great point by Forest Dweller, because we always hear about civilization as a heat engine, or humans are a heat engine, or, all the ways that humans live is always destructive. I disagree. I disagree, and I agree with Forest Dweller. We can go back. We can use less things. We can, become an agrarian society. Can we do that trying to feed 8 billion people without a globalized economy or without fossil fuels or without, global shipping industry? No, we can't. We probably can't do that. But if we wisely and, methodically stopped having as many children, stopped using as much energy, started living off the, off grid and off the land, with much fewer people and much fewer mouths to feed, and grow our own food. Used very little electricity, just for communications products. Like, we could become way less of a heat engine. I know a lot of people disagree with that idea. Basil Peterson, the Roman Empire was a heat engine. Were they? Were they a heat engine, or were they a mildly warm heat engine? Although, agricultural societies have also destroyed entire regions that were capable of growing food, right? Like, look at the Fertile Crescent, which became a desert. Veronica says we can, but we won't. Probably not. We probably won't. Probably not likely. Probably not until things go very, very wrong. And then everybody's like, what we should do? It's too late? Shit. Andy the Gardener, hunter-gatherers killed off the megafauna, thus requiring civilization. Thus, the carbon footprint of hunter-gatherers is huge. Well, And you're right, they did. Hunter gatherers did kill off megafauna. So not saying that any other civilizations were not destructive. Were not a destructive force. Just not at the velocity and the scale that current industrial civilization. And so on some levels, I agree with Forest Dweller. I agree. If we choose it, but again, do we have time? Is the huge question, and most Magic 8 balls would tell you no. Russ Taylor, I'm sure Stone Age Man was a heat engine, but there were many fewer in number. Francis Madigan says, we could have saved the planet, but we were too cheap. Kurt Vonnegut. I never heard that quote from him, but that is good. Or I don't remember it. If I read it in a book, I don't remember it. Kuro Hikes, the reason why people wanted to go to the New World was because they needed resources like timber, because it was all burned up making warships and armor. Go figure. We got to give the New World some freedom. Also, back in the day, sugar and coffee were literally like cocaine, right? Because people didn't have sugar and coffee, right? And when people first started, tasted coffee and sugar, they were like, whoosh, I need another line of that, right? So coffee and sugar and tea were like, the old school cartels, right? If you can control the sugar and the coffee trade and the tea trade, that was like some cartel shit back in the day. Kuro Hikes, the problem with humans is we don't have predators. Well, not right now. We do. We will soon enough. Soon enough. It's going to be called hunger. Hunger is a hell of a predator. Hey guys, guess what? I'm going to do extra time today, but give me 1 second because I have to hook something up. So I know we started the climate change portion of the show with discussion, but let's get into some actual news. There is some news. Hurricane Delta heads towards the U.S. Gulf Coast after slamming Mexico's Yucatan. And this is actually from yesterday. Leaving Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula on Wednesday, Hurricane Delta is expected to strengthen back into a major storm as it makes its way toward the same area of the U.S. Gulf Coast, still picking up the pieces from Hurricane Laura. A hurricane watch was issued for parts of the coast from High Island, Texas, eastward to Grand Isle, Louisiana, and a storm surge watch is in effect from High Island to the Alabama-Florida border, according to the National Hurricane Center. Live updates from the storm. So here it is here. Delta strengthening while moving over the south central Gulf of Mexico. The center said Wednesday evening, life-threatening storm surge and damaging winds increasingly likely along portions of the northern Gulf Coast beginning Friday. While the center predicts the storm could strengthen into a Category 3 hurricane Thursday night, cooler water and upper-level winds may weaken Delta to a Category 2 by the time it hits the U.S. coast. Moving on to other news here. Hurricane Delta, this is from today, bears striking resemblance to Wilma, the Atlantic's most intense hurricane on record. Hurricane Delta strengthened to at an incredible rate. This is from today, this morning, more than 85 miles per hour over 24 hours, reaching Category 4 on Tuesday before dropping back down to Category 2. It was the fastest rate of intensification in the Caribbean since Hurricane Wilma in 2005, when that storm went from 75 miles per hour to 185 miles per hour in just 24 hours' time. Delta's rapid intensification is no coincidence. Memorable storms like this season's Hurricane Laura and past season storms like Michael and Harvey have done the same. Over the past few decades, rapid intensification has been increasing by about 3 to 4 miles per hour per decade due to hotter waters from human-caused climate change. That means a system in 1980 that may have intensified by 40 miles per hour in 24 hours might now intensify at 55 miles per hour in 24 hours. But Delta is looking especially similar to Wilma, the most intense storm on record in the Atlantic, and it could similarly have a catastrophic impact. Excuse me. Delta is forming in the exact same place as Wilma over a pool of the hottest water in the northern hemisphere. It is also forming at the same time of year, and both storms' eyes are tiny pinhole. Those tiny evil pinhole eyes. Pretty substantial burst of lightning underway within the core of Delta. Unfortunately, this will only continue the intensification process as it wraps around the core. Let me see if we can watch this. Anyways, that is happening in the Gulf. Moving on to this story, I've somebody sent me this quite a few days ago, but I don't know, it got buried in my news, but I've seen quite a few people post this, Kevin Hester and others. There was some kind of environmental disaster. Something happened. There was a large number of animals that washed ashore dead in Russia. There's no English on this, so I don't really know what's happening beyond what you see in the video. Man, I'm going to play this. Somehow this is a bit longer. Sorry. Okay, back from the beginning. Sorry about that. My bad.
Ребят, тут просто вообще все завалено морской живностью. Я не знаю, там на дне что-нибудь выжило вообще, нет? Просто слоем 20 сантиметров. Даже крабы есть. все мидиями завалены, ежиками. Кладбище какое-то. Вон краб лежит. Видите, как по кладбищу идешь.
So, pretty massive event. Fairly massive event, and I don't, nobody knows really what happened unless anybody has any other information. I don't know if anybody has any other information about why this happened or what happened off the coast of Russia there to cause such a massive death spiral. I don't, there were so many animals washed ashore there. I mean, who knows? Who knows what caused that? Yes, Andy the Gardener gives real meaning to the dead zone. The Salt Lakers, I don't know. To me, it looks like the last time I went to a Red Lobster. Jesus. Yeah, kind of, yeah. Veronica says poison, going south toxic, sea temperature was too high, methane leak. That's what I was thinking. I thought methane leak was my first thought. Muzza, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Poison, oil, gas leak, radiation. I don't know. Russians dump tons of toxic waste in the seas around there. Yes, Russ Taylor. Sure. Peggy Gravel says methane. Andy the Gardener, just collateral damage, perhaps. Let's move on. This story tweeted out by Go Green. With both Earth coolers, Arctic and Amazon essentially dying unless emissions eliminated ASAP, a 2C world by 2036 or 2040. And, we can we could possibly laugh about that too, is increasingly likely, and the world is still pumping billions into fossil fuels. The climate emergency is still being ignored. This is from Scientific American. Well, this is very old too. This is by Michael Mann from April 1st, April Fools, 2014. Earth will cross the climate danger threshold by 2036. So this is fairly doomy for Michael Mann 6 years ago, talking about the near future, crossing the 2C temperature. The rate of global temperature rise may have hit a plateau, but a climate crisis still looms in the near future. The rate at which the Earth's temperature has been rising eased slightly in the past decade, but temperatures are still increasing. Oh, and they've, since 2014, not only temperatures, but every other signal or sign that global warming is accelerating has, shown itself, laid itself bare. Right? The pre-industrial level of CO2 was about 280 parts per million. So double is roughly 560 parts per million. Scientists expect this doubling to occur later this century if nations continue to burn fossil fuels. Well, guess what? We're at, we've increased emissions by 50%. Or increased CO2 levels, sorry. Scientists expect this doubling to occur later this century if nations continue to burn fossil fuels as they do now. The business as usual scenario, instead of curtailing fossil fuel use, the more sensitive the atmosphere is to a rise in CO2, the higher the ECS faster the temperature will rise. Trying to get to the meat of this. Obviously, I didn't see that this was such an old article, but this is not new news, of course. Most scientists concur that 2 degrees C of warming above the temperature during pre-industrial time would harm all sectors of civilization: food, water, health, land, national security, energy, and economic prosperity. ECS is a guide to when that will happen, but if we continue emitting CO2 at our business as usual pace. So he calculated 6 years ago that we would cross the dangerous warming threshold of 2 degrees C in 2036. That is now only 16 years from now. Over under, guys. What do you say? When do we hit the dreaded 2C? Andy the Gardener, probably more like 1936. Peggy Gravel, I probably can't handle a longer show. Well, don't worry, we've only got about 15 more minutes. Yeah, I can't fit it all in an hour. An hour is just too short, but maybe an hour and a half is too long. I don't know. What are we gonna do? Basil, I'm about to go outside and apologize to a tree. Godspeed, sir. So yeah. 6 years ago, it was 2036 is when we're going to hit 2C. Do you think we'll hit 2C before then? Pre 2030, I'm sure there are lots of takers on that one. Anton Krez says he should have pushed it to 2016. Okay, let's go back. I want to go back to reading a little. Just before we go, guys, I'm going to read a little more of this Gray Zone article about Planet of the Humans. And then I will let you all go about your days. Problem is, so we left off with Naomi Klein getting into the mix, jumping into the mix of condemning the film. I'm saying, that's not it. That's not it. Let's go on to the next part. Mining a green future and burying the cost. Like most opponents of Planet of the Humans, Keaton Joshi painted the documentary as a dumb old bull in a china shop that is 2020's hard-earned climate action environment. Okay. And along with other critics, he accused the film's co-producers, Gibbs and Zenner, of wildly misrepresenting the efficiency of renewables. Wildly. To illustrate his point, he referenced a scene depicting the Cedar Street solar array in Lansing, Michigan, with flexible solar panels running at 8% efficiency, purportedly enough to generate electricity for just 10 homes. Because that scene was part of a historical sequence filmed in 2008, Joshi dismissed it as an example of the film's extreme oldness, quote unquote. However, this February, the solar trade publication PV Magazine, this February, we're talking about 2020, found that Tesla's newest line of flexible solar shingles had an efficiency rate of 8.1%, almost exactly the same as those depicted in Planet of the Humans. Those are Tesla's newest line. While it is true that monocrystalline solar panels, and I believe we were talking about that in the chat just a little bit earlier, boast a higher efficiency rate between 15% and 18% in commercially available form, they were also on the market back in 2008. These panels are significantly more expensive than the flexible, less efficient panels, however, and their efficiency levels do not account for the intermittency inherent to solar energy, which does not work well in cloudy or dark conditions. Yet, according to Josh Fox, the most vehement opponent of Planet of the Humans, the planet-saving capacity of solar and other supposedly clean forms of energy was so well established it was beyond debate. The premise of the film is renewable energy doesn't work and is dependent on fossil fuels, and that is patently ridiculous, Fox remarked to me. And the reason why I got into this is because I had young environmentalists, young people who are steadfast campaigners, calling me in the middle of the night, freaking out, telling me, I can't believe this. And I looked at them and I said, well, there's a reason why you can't believe this. It's because it's not true. But was the presentation of renewable energy sources in Planet of the Humans actually false? Ecological economist William Rees has claimed that despite rapid growth in wind and solar generation, the green energy transition is not really happening. That might be because it is chasing energy growth instead of curtailing it. Ooh, boom. Chasing energy growth instead of curtailing it. Well, and that may or may not be in line with Jevons paradox, or maybe all part of it. And maybe we can't get away from it. I don't know. Rees pointed out that the surge in global demand for electricity last year exceeded the total output of the world's entire 30-year accumulation of solar power installations. So the increase in global demand for electricity last year exceeded the total output of the world's, just the increase, not the total usage, just the increase, exceeded the total output of the world's entire 30-year accumulation of solar power installations. Are there not reasonable grounds then to be concerned about the practicality of a full transition to renewables, especially in a hyper-capitalist, growth-obsessed economy like that of the United States? A September 2018 scientific study delivered some conclusions that contradicted the confident claims of renewables advocates. A research team measured solar thermal plants currently in operation around the world and found that they are dependent on the intensive use of materials, which is code for heavily mined minerals. Heavily mined minerals. Minerals used in selected power generation technologies. So, these are the extent of minerals used in offshore wind, onshore wind, solar PV, natural gas, and coal. And these minerals include zinc, silicone, copper, lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt, chromium, rare earths, and others. Further, the researchers found that the output of these plants was marred by significant seasonal intermittence due to shifting weather patterns and the simple fact that the sun does not always shine. The negative impact of massive wind farms on the environment and marginalized communities, an issue highlighted in Planet of the Humans, is also a serious concern, especially in the global south. Anthropologist and renewing destruction, wind, development, conflict, and resistance in a Latin American context, author Alexander Dunlop published a peer-reviewed 2017 study of wind farms in the indigenous Tehuantepec region of Oaxaca, Mexico, which has been marketed as one of the most ideal wind generation sites in the world. Dunlap found that the supposedly renewable projects largely reinforced income inequality, furthered poverty entrenchment, and increased food vulnerability and worker dependency on the construction of more wind parks, which cumulatively had led to an increase in work-related outmigration and environmental degradation. When wind turbines reach the end of their life cycle, their fiberglass blades, which can be as long as a football field, are impossible to recycle. As a result, they are piling up in rural dumping sites across the U.S. Meanwhile, the environmentalist magazine Grist warned this August of a solar e-waste glut that will produce megatons of toxic trash when solar panels begin to lose efficiency and die. In response to my questions about so-called renewable energy, Fox referred me to a close ally, Anthony Ingrafia, who signed his letter calling for Planet of the Humans to be pulled. A civil engineer and co-founder of Physicians, Scientists, and Engineers for Healthy Energy, which advocates for renewables, Ingrafia is a former oil and gas industry insider who turned into a forceful opponent of fracking. In the past 6 years, he has produced scientific assessments for the governments of New York State and California on a transition to mostly renewable energy sources. Ingrafia slammed Planet of the Humans as way off base and derided research by Ozzy Zenner, the co-producer, as conspiracy theory shit. He contrasted his credentials with those of Zenner, boasting that while he has earned 15,000 citations in peer-reviewed academic journals during his career as an engineer, Zenner has chalked up a mere 300. Okay. He's not even published as much as me. When I turn to the subject of social environmental damage caused by so-called renewables, Ingrafia argued that the burning, storing, and transportation of fossil fuels outweighed any of those costs. According to Ingrafia, when New York State makes a decisive transition to renewables, only about 2% of the state's land would be occupied by solar and wind farms, which translates to about 1,100 square miles. He pointed to the New York State Assembly's Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act as an embodiment of the foresight of proponents of a near-total transition to renewable energy. The bill, which calls for the state to run 70% of its publicly generated energy off of renewable energy systems by 2030, also mandates that 35% of investments from clean energy and energy efficiency funds be invested in disadvantaged communities. That's wisdom speaking, Ingrafia said of the legislation. That's telling you that, yes, we are aware of the problem that you said we should be aware of. Yeah, we're not all dumb. We're not all crazy. We're not all ideological. Not all technical nerds who just fall in love and want to make sex with solar panels. What? What? Okay, make sex with solar panels. However, the communities or their designated NGO representatives, supposedly compensated through the New York State bill, are not located in the regions that will be most impacted by the extraction necessary to manufacture so-called renewables. Already devastated by coups and neo-colonial exploitation, swaths of the global south, from Bolivia to Congo, home to massive reserves of cobalt, hand-mined, and slave conditions for electric car batteries and iPhones, are being further destabilized by the minerals rush. That is what is called outsourcing, offshoring of all the negatives, right? From renewable energy, right? What's the other word I'm looking for? Offshoring, outsourcing, externalizing, right? Yes, these we're powering 50% of our energy grid with these renewables. But where do they come from? Where do the minerals come from? Where did all the emissions get burned when we mined all these minerals? Thousands of miles away. Right? Then they had to be shipped over here. Then then they had to be shipped to China. Then we had to make the solar panels in China. Then we had to ship the solar panels over here. Then we had to, construct all these solar farms. Right? But when you actually calculate the renewables that are part of your energy grid, right? Are you counting in all those emissions from the creation of the solar panels and the mining and the extracting and the shipping and all of that? Are you counting that into your emissions? No, you're not. No, you're not. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there, and thanks so much.